Welcome back. Next month, of course, is Black History Month, and there are all kinds of events all over the county going on. And we have a special guest on the show to tell us a little bit about that, Miss Yevola Peters, who is a special assistant to the county executive for human relations. Miss Peters, thank you for being on the show. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Ms. Peters, can you tell us a bit about your position with what you do for the county?
Well, I technically serve as the Human Relations Officer for the county, and that includes, of course, working with minority issues, as well as taking complaints that people feel they've been discriminated against, investigating, doing conflict resolution, mediation. Really, human relations means just getting people to work together.
I like that. And we were discussing off camera that you're originally from South Carolina?
Yes.
And then when did you move to Arundel?
Well, I came to Morgan State, it was Morgan State College in Baltimore in '53, met my husband who's from New York. Well, my to-be husband then, of course.
College sweetheart.
Yes, yes, yes. And we settled in Centerville, Maryland. So we were in Centerville for 5 years. He was a music teacher and I was a music teacher. Both of us taught. I taught in Kent County, he taught in Queen Anne's County, and then decided to move to Anne Arundel. And actually, the reason we moved to Anne Arundel County was because we had my first son, and when he reached 5, we were looking for a preschool program, and of course it was segregated at that time, and so the only preschool program in Centerville did not accept blacks. So I said, I didn't come up here to fight the Civil War again, so I went back to South Carolina to do some
Plus, you didn't
work.
have your musket with you.
And he called me and said, guess what? We moved to Annapolis. And so when he came to pick me up from South Carolina, that's where we ended up, in Annapolis. And that was in 1963.
And I have to ask, because you mentioned it, and because I'm such a music nerd. Now, do you or your husband play an instrument, or what did you teach?
Well, I taught instrumental music and general music. I played piano, because I was going to be a concert pianist, but
I play piano too.
Oh,
we're
good.
piano sisters.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes. And so I taught in Anne Arundel County. I taught in Kent County, Howard County, and then my last stint of teaching was in Anne Arundel County. And in 1969, I then became the Youth Development Director for Community Action Agency. And in '74, became acting executive director and was the executive director for the Community Action Agency until 1991, when I retired the first time. Went back to the agency in 2001, and then finally ended 2005.
My goodness.
No one will ever let you leave. Now, Miss Yevola, we've known each other for many, many years, and one of my favorite things to do is pick your brain about historical events in Annapolis that I was not here for and that I know very little about. You know, if I want to know about, you know, Pitt Moyer and Zastro Sims or Carl Snowden or Vince Leggett, these people who we know very well now, you knew them, you know, when they were just getting started in life and finding their ways. What do you think? What do you think about Black History means to you? Black History Month means to you now compared to so many years ago? Obviously, when you came here, you're saying that Annapolis was better than the Eastern Shore, but still had a long way to go, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the whole purpose of Black History Month is to highlight the accomplishments and achievements of blacks. And, you know, of course, people ask, well, why do you need to highlight that? Well, you know, recognizing that in the settlement of the United States, this was the first time in civilization that slavery was based on race, and that was really where racism started. So from the 17th to the 19th centuries, you know, during the time of slavery and even after slavery, there was very little written in history books about the accomplishments and achievements of even the continent Africa, of what, you know, the civilization that took place there, and as well as persons who were descendants from Africans, what what kind of accomplishments, achievement. The only thing in the history books was written was about slavery. And so the whole purpose of having African American Month was to really help people to understand what some of the achievements and the accomplishments of African Americans were. So in 1926, Carter, the person who actually started the Black History, it started with really Black History Week. And then from there, it went to Black History Month.
In 1926, did you say?
1926 was the first time that we started with, it was really called Black History Week. Well, it was called really Negro History Week because in the earlier times, we were all called Negroes. And then, of course, as time came about and as the Civil Rights movement came, then, of course, we changed to Black history rather than Negro history.
I have to ask too, especially going back to when you were a teacher, because there's been so many accomplishments by Blacks through music. With Black History Month, did you ever take that opportunity with your classes to bring up some of the accomplishments that had occurred in music class?
Well, yes. In fact, even though, I'm trying to think, when I started teaching, of course, we used to do a lot of music, of course, that were from Black musicians, as well as all musicians. But it was during the 60s because even though the integration of schools started after 1954, when the Brown versus Board of Education, integration really in Maryland, in Anne Arundel County, didn't take place until around, I think it was 66 or 6, yeah, it was about 66, because, and the reason I should remember that is because when I first came to Anne Arundel County in 63, I couldn't teach at any of the white schools, as they were called, because of the segregation. And that was, I can remember applying to teach music at Rolling Knolls and was denied. But then in 66, when I reapplied to the school system again, I remember getting a call from the personnel at the Board of Education saying that they had an opening at Overlook and Linthicum Elementary School, and would I be willing to teach white students? And so I said, are they human? And so that's where I started teaching Linthicum and Overlook. In fact, I think I was probably the first Black teacher at the two elementary schools because they were in the process of integrating at that time. And then, of course, gradually as things, I ended up my teaching at Corcoran. It was called Corcoran Junior High then. And of course, so I got an opportunity to really foster music and have people to understand all of the various kinds of music and styles, including, of course, music that was developed and composed by Black musicians. So it was exciting.
It's incredible.
So let's say that somebody wants to get involved in some of the activities that are planned for the month of February. Anything stand out to you?
Well, the first thing I would encourage people is to get to know the Banneker Douglas Museum at 84 Franklin Street, because that
in Annapolis.
Yes, it's right in Annapolis. It's in Anne Arundel County, and it is the state's museum for African American life and history. Yep. And so there are a number of things that are happening there. And then the community college will be having an art exhibit that is exciting for all of that month. It will be about the civil rights movement. And so that will be, and then there'll be some other activities. I think that you're going to post or
yeah, we'll have on the community calendar.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. But the community college, I'm very impressed with what is happening at the community college and all of the various activities. So I would encourage people to look at the schedule of things that are happening and participate. And then there'll be a lot of things that are happening in local, at churches. There are always various things that are being featured at various churches in the community in order to celebrate Black History Month. And usually in the school system, a lot of attention is taken,
Right.
is given to that, to have activities. So it's a good time to be able to really highlight and to emphasize that all people in America have contributed to the development of this country. And Black history is one of the times that we can then feature the things that African Americans have done.
Well, I asked you earlier on, how your view of this celebration has changed over time, and one thing that struck me was one of the events they're having at the community colleges. They're going to do a demonstration of a sit-in, and I thought, you know what they say: those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
And I mean, what do kids know these days about a sit-in? And what that meant, and how scary that had to be, and how much courage it took for people to do that. Going from Rosa Parks on the bus to so many other people who had the courage to stage these sit-ins.
Yes. The various
Now they have a hashtag or something. They tweet about it and they're like, "Oh, I solved the problem."
Right. I wore a T-shirt and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the civil rights movement, precipitated a number of kinds of civil disobedience and actions that took place that made change. I thought it was really interesting. One of the elementary schools had I read in the paper that they had their march about having physical ed doing short days, when days are shorter, that they were recess, to be able to have recess.
Oh.
And that they actually was protesting. They
Yes.
had their little signs and they were marching.
We want recess.
Hey,
Recess is important.
And they studied the life of Martin Luther King, and learned about the civil rights movement,
Right.
and then did this little protest. So that was understanding that whole civil rights and what happened and how people did, protested in a peaceful manner.
Yeah.
So, so I think
It's really
those-
what this country's all about.
Yes.
It really
yes.
is.
And one of the things that I'm excited about what I do with human relations, of course, having to do with promoting diversity, because we don't have to agree with each other. But the point is that we can respect each other. So as we hear our differences and we're able to talk through our differences, then that's what diversity is all about. And the whole idea, again, of Black history is to be able to highlight the diversity in this country.
Well, folks, there you have it. We could easily talk to Yevola Peters for
All
hours
day.
and hours
All day.
about these topics and more. Thank you so much for giving us
Yes.
the time to be on the show, and hopefully we can have you on again soon.
Thank you.
Yes.
Carter Woodson.
Carter Woodson, got
That's
it.
the historian who
defi-
started Black history.
There we
Carter
go.
Woodson.
And definitely Banneker Douglas Museum is a great suggestion. I've been there and it's a fabulous museum. We're going to take a really quick break and we will be right back with more Week in Review.